Welcome back to Channel 7. This is about my 5th time trying to get this intro right. Hopefully this is the one. Today I'm filming my August wrap up. Even though August is not done, we have about a week left and I definitely will be reading more. I just don't have time to film and talk about those books. So let's get into this video because I have a pretty decent stack. I read 10 books this month and fell in love with the better half of them. The first book that I read this month, read and completed this month, is The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. And honestly, this was an incredible piece of writing. I didn't expect to like it that much, and I didn't expect to like the way that it was structured. This is about a Jamaican girl and a Korean American boy, or a Korean boy, who fall in love in a day. And that sounds like completely ridiculous and kind of preposterous. And to be honest, I was very skeptical when I first picked this up because I was like, I hate it when I read a romance-based story and do not buy into the romance. I mean, it's just a complete waste of time. But this sold me 100%, like to the point where I was crying. The central conflict of this story is that our main character is about to be deported back to Jamaica because of something her father did. But you'll have to read to find out more and find out what happens to their relationship that blossoms in one day. It was honestly very believable and brilliantly done. I gave this 4.5 stars and I loved it. The next book I read is actually something that I started like a couple months ago and then put down after like the first 2 pages. Not because it wasn't good, I was just busy, but I picked it up again, and that is I'm Not Dying With You Tonight by Gilly, segal, and Kimberly Jones. This story revolves around 2 characters, obviously, Lena and Campbell. Campbell's new to the city and to this high school, and one night when she's working the concession stand and Lena happens to be picking up some stuff, a fight breaks out at their high school football game, and it actually like ripples through the city. I think it has to do with like racial tensions being high around this time, and these 2 strangers are basically trying to survive the night together because honestly, they're all each other has and they need each other to get through the night. I thought it had great character development in it, and I really enjoyed seeing Campbell and Lena like talk about their differences, and just like the way they like initially judge each other is definitely based on stereotypes and just like opinions that we really need to break down when we meet new people. But I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I love the conversation. All right, the next book that I read was like a little intermission book, and it turned out that it was also just a masterpiece of work, and that is Stamped: Racism, Anti-Racism, and You by Ibram X. Kendi and Jason Reynolds. I believe this is like a condensed and shortened rendition of another book that is written by these authors. I listened to this on audiobook, which was definitely the best choice ever because it just made this a very immersive experience. Obviously, by the title, this book deals with anti-racism, racism, and you and I. I will say I didn't agree with every philosophy that was kind of thrown out there, but I generally thought that this was a very educational piece of literature about anti-racism and racism work, and it is basically a history but non-history book about the subject matter. I gave this 4.5 stars. Again, my ratings this month are so high in comparison to like every other month this year. The next book that I am here to talk to you guys about is Give the Dark My Love by Beth Revis, and I feel like I'm saying this about literally every book because I didn't expect to love this, but I really did. I really did. This story is about Nedra Bristine, who gets accepted into the prestigious Yugen Academy for alchemy, and she leaves the north of Lunar Island, which is the colony that she lives in, to go and attend school in like the south, I believe, the south of Lunar Island. Very different settings. The north is mostly villages and the south is mostly like metropole, elitist, wealthy area. Nedra is very passionate about her studies, particularly because she is interested in finding a cure for a disease called wasting death that has been plaguing the northern parts of Lunar Island, but hasn't really touched the south. The story really takes off into a very dark, like, path, because not only is she learning alchemy, but soon starts to learn stuff that is technically, well, not even technically, it is very illegal, very forbidden, and could get her executed. But her professor is kind of heading this study and research, and he's a lot more radical than he seems. And just so much goes on in this book. Now, the first, like, I want to say 40% of the book is pretty slow paced in terms of there's not a lot of action. We're really getting used to the setting and to like the studies of wasting death and just being in like the hospital and the academy and trying to figure out like what's going on. And then you get to a like critical juncture in the story and everything breaks loose. Like it goes downhill. Okay, I had to go and get this one even though it's packed away in like my backpack, but Crave by Tracy Wolff. Okay. Wow, there's so many emotions. I'd like to start off by saying that this is not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and I feel like a very specific type of reader will enjoy this, but I can see so many people that I know who read thinking that this is not good literature. Personally, this is right up my alley. This is exactly what I signed up for. Our main character, Grace, her parents have passed away. They died in a car accident, and her uncle has taken her in, but he is a headmaster at this boarding school in Alaska, so she is moving over there to stay with him and her cousin. When she arrives at the school, I mean, it's in the middle of Alaska, like she's moving from like California or something like that, somewhere warm. So definitely a huge change in scenery for her, but also the people seem particularly odd. And she's not sure why. So the next book that I read was The Prophecy by Lily Blake, and if you've ever watched the TV series Reign, I think the book is actually based off the TV series, which is kind of strange because usually it's the other way around. Basically, our main character, Mary, Queen of Scots, is getting married to Francis, who will be the King of France, and it's like a political alliance kind of marriage, but they do very much love each other. And they skipped a lot of stuff that happens in the TV show, like all the stuff with Bash and Kenna and like the characters. I think there's like a prequel that is like a novella that you can read, but I didn't know about that, so I just picked up the first book and I was like, what happened to all the other stuff that happens before, about like the darkness and like, anyways, grayer. But I'm gonna pick that up and read it later because I really just enjoyed reading this. Like, it felt like I was watching the TV show because I already have the pictures in my head. And Francis and Mary and Bash and Kenna, like, it was like being at home with these people. They're such a great cast of characters. I gave it 4 stars, by the way. Oh, did I tell you what I gave? I gave The Prophecy 4 stars, and I forgot to say I also gave this 4 stars. The next book that I read was The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe, and it's a short story. It was very short, like very short. Basically is our main character is looking to get revenge on another man who I think insulted him or something in the past. Okay, ask me why I read this literally 3 days ago and I don't even know what it was about. 3 stars. If that interests you, you should check it out, I guess. The next book that I read is the literal contemporary love of my life, and that is Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry by Joya Goffney. Joya Goffney. This story is, first of all, about Black love. I mean, enough said. So our main character, Quinn, is very much like me. She loves to make lists and journals literally everything about her life in a red book, except I don't journal everything about my life in a red book. She makes lists for literally everything, and they're very embarrassing and very private and just so much about her. And one day when she's in a group project, she accidentally has her journal get switched, and then it goes missing at school. And somebody who has her journal starts blackmailing her to complete one of the lists, which is like her top worst fears. And it's pretty bad because they're threatening to expose most of her lists and other pages in her journal if she doesn't do this. So Carter, who accidentally lost her journal in the first place when he took hers by accident, is gonna help her out. And right now, like, they kind of hate each other because she's like, this guy is so self-righteous, like he thinks he knows everything, and he's like, this girl is such a brat and she's rich and she's such a Hillary, like Hillary Banks. And it's just the perfect like little enemies to lovers rom-com story. I love both characters. Like Quinn, I love the kind of character that she was created to be. I just think that bringing more representation to like what Black people look like you know? Like, there's not one type of Black person. There are different types of Black people, and you get that a lot when you know Olivia, and you know Carter, and you know Quinn. I don't know why I forgot her name. I mean, I also just love Auden. Like, he's just great altogether. Anyways, I gave this 5 stars. It is now on my top favorite books list, and I highly, highly recommend that you read it. I've never like fully watched Alice in Wonderland, and I don't plan on doing that anymore after reading this book. I can see how this might be like a fun little story for like a 5-year-old who doesn't know what's going on, but as a person who knows what's going on, this story made no sense. It was weird. Like, someone explained to me the peculiarities of this story, because I just did not know what was happening at any point in time. Alice was like the biggest brat you could ever imagine. This just didn't make sense. I gave it 2 stars because I want someone to read this so that they can experience my absolute confusion. And I only give books 1 star when I wouldn't recommend them to people. So I gave this 2 stars so that someone will read it, and then we can discuss the weirdness. It's really short, so if you want to take on that burden, please do. The last book that I read is The King of Clubs, and it's basically a Hercule Poirot. I don't know, I can't say that. But he is basically taking on like this mystery. So he has a friend, acquaintance, who summons him because this person thinks that their fiance was involved or like incriminated in a murder. This is also a short story, so that's all I can really say about it. I gave it 3 stars. I'm currently reading A Fair at Styles, and that I'm very much enjoying. That's also by Agatha Christie. I'll probably finish that today or tomorrow. So yeah, those are all the books that I read this month. And as you can see, I read a lot of books that I absolutely loved, minus like Alice in Wonderland, which made absolutely no sense to me, the Cask of Amontillado, which I just don't really understand what happened. But like, other than that, it was a really great reading month altogether. I hope you guys had a great reading month as well. Let me know your favorite book that you read this month and a book that you would recommend for me if you want to recommend a book. I probably won't be able to get to it unless it's already on my TBR, because TBR is long.
Butterflies. Oh, yes,
but we're working towards it.